What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dish podcast from the Iowa State Daily. Like always, I'm Brett Twellmeyer, sports editor. I'll be your host, and I'll have my co-hosts introduce themselves.
What's up, guys? This is sports editor Pavel Markovic back with you with another episode.
Hi, I'm Katie Schaefer, sports reporter.
So we just got done with the women's Big 12 tournament. Iowa State went 1-1, defeated Arizona State, but fell to Baylor, who went on to lose to TCU in the championship. Haley Van Lith wins tournament MVP, as expected. So pretty much chalk all the way through for this tournament. Katie, you were down there. Just opening thoughts on just kind of how the tournament went for the Cyclones.
It went pretty good. We started off pretty strong, and then we lost in the quarterfinals, which, I don't know, I expected it. But honestly, it was a really fun environment, and Hilton South really showed, so it was fun to see.
Yeah, just kind of take us through that opening game. Just kind of, I know that you talked about it already, but just like what you saw again of like what Arizona State did and how Iowa State kind of combated that and got away with the win.
Yeah, so we played Arizona State first. We won 96-88. This was Addie Brown's night. She ended the night with 41 points. She broke like 3 records and is like the new high scorer. So it was all her, and it was great, which I think was kind of the downfall going into the next game, which is because I already kind of drew the attention to her. But for Arizona State, I think Ty Skinner was such a big part of like the defensive side. She was really good. She had 2 steals, which were like the only steals of the game. But yeah, she was just really good, and I felt like she kept Iowa State on their toes.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State, still put up 88 points. They made it really competitive for the Cyclones. Like you were talking about, Ty Skinner scores 23. You also had Jalen Brown, who scored 26. You had another player in Jaya Levitt, scored 12. So, I mean, Arizona State had a lot of really good contributors in this game. So, yeah, it was really just, like you said, Addie Brown kind of taking over in this one. I'd also say Audie Crooks, I thought, had a pretty solid game as well, especially from the free throw line. I thought that Iowa State was really solid overall, and they shot a ton of free throws in this one too.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the goal that Coach Fenley was talking about, how we just have to get them to the line, and then they'll do great. And it proved it. They made 33 out of their 40 shots, which Audie Crooks and Addie Brown both had 10. And then Emily Ryan went 8 for 8. So I thought it was pretty good for them for that. That was really like a game sealer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they shot like over twice as many as Arizona State did, made 21 more than they did. The three-point shooting, though, I thought was pretty even. Arizona State actually looks like did better. Arizona State overall shot the ball better, too. So maybe it was just a thing of like Iowa State put up, more shots or something, or just, probably the free throw thing still is that discrepancy of like how they won the game.
Yeah, and then I feel like for three-pointers, like we built them up so high, like going like in the regular season, and then postseason we just like it was like all Audie, which is like fine, but she's such a big reliant, and everybody's gonna target her that it's not gonna go good. Yeah. I also thought like the personal foul difference was crazy. Like Arizona had 30, and then Iowa State had 18, which is pretty like a big difference. Yeah. And it kind of shows that like Arizona really tried to pull all the stops, which was to be expected because they went all out against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I feel like we see that on the men's side too. Like there's such a big like foul discrepancy, or just honestly calls that like probably shouldn't be called or are called. Did you notice any of that in this game at all, of like just kind of like wishy-washy type of fouls at all, or did it feel pretty fair?
It felt pretty fair. I think it kind of got out of fair like during the Baylor game. Okay. But that could have just been because I was really mad. Like the Cyclones weren't doing very good. This one felt pretty even. There were like some things I was like, that was holding or whatever. But it felt pretty fine.
Yeah. Back to Addie Brown. I mean, when you look at her just shooting in general, 23 shots that she put up in this game, that feels like, what you were saying in the postseason, like it's what Audie has really kind of been doing, like that type of shooting numbers. Just did it look more like Baylor was trying to shut down Audie, and that's kind of what opened up Addie to have her big night?
Oh, for sure. And then it was more of like Addie kind of proved that she could shoot from everywhere.
Right.
It was also a little bit of like we weren't getting really good passes to Audie, so that kind of like just didn't do great. But when we did give the ball to Audie, she like put it up pretty decently. I felt like Addie was just such a good contributor, both offensively and defensively, that I was like, why wouldn't you give her the ball? And then she just took it away. Like, she did great.
I liked Bill's comment after the game. Pretty good for a second team Big 12 player.
Right? Like, he just, like, he's really funny, but he keeps them so humble.
Yeah.
Because, like, earlier in the regular season, he was like, she's just right on the line of cocky. And, like, you can definitely tell, like, during the game, like, she was just, it was really fun to watch because they were just having so much fun.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite moment in the game at all? Like, was there, like, a shot that Iowa State kind of, like, made or something, or, like, a steal that kind of, like, put the game out of reach at a point?
I'd have to think about the Arizona State one, but for the Baylor game, it was when Ariana Jackson hit the her
100%.
three-point shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
That one was really good. I don't know, anytime like Audie or Addie would just like hit a layup, that was like so difficult because they were getting double teamed, and then like they would chest bump each other or whatever. It's just such a fun thing to watch because like the whole like community coming together and stuff. It's really entertaining.
Yeah. Hilton South really showed out, it looked like.
Yes, it was great.
Yeah. I did find it odd how even though Arizona State barely got 10 wins, they still even compete with the best teams still. And you saw even with the regular season matchup, it was close or high scoring and it was close. And then this one was even close in tournament play. So really respected Arizona State for that, it looked like. But it was the Addie Brown show that won the day.
Yep. Yeah, so all around, I mean, it was a good way for Iowa State to start off the tournament, but then came the real test against second-seeded Baylor. Dropped that one 69-63, but, I mean, Iowa State played them really well. I thought much better than the first time they played them in Waco. It was competitive. Iowa State, trailed for a while, but ended up taking the lead late in the game. Just, I thought it was a really fun game to watch.
No, it definitely kept you on your toes. We lost 63-69. It was mostly Audie stealing the show for this, and we were trailing throughout the whole thing. But then the Ariana Jackson shot from like the 3-point line in the third quarter gave us like that 1 point lead, and that was kind of like a switch. Like, oh, we got it. But I definitely thought there was some calls that could have just been my personal thoughts, but I thought there were some calls that were not needed. But I thought it was a really good game to watch.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. I mean, Audie really took over, and you feel like a lot of games this season, it's always like Audie or Addie or sometimes Emily, sometimes even Sydney Harris took over to be the leading scorer. So it kind of shows the versatility that this team does have of being able to have like, one person that they can rely on at least in every game.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the fact that you can still have that depth from like the bench or just your other starters, knowing that they can put up shots if they really need to. Because Audie got in some trouble sometimes. It was Bella Fauntleroy who really kept Audie on her toes. And then when
Aaron Von Lay.
Thank you. And then when Kyla Abraham stepped up, like it was difficult. It really it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, it looked like a good game plan. Just her attacking both of them because there was both of Baylor's bigger players that were good, so it was a good idea to attack them. And obviously, the refs kept calling fouls on them, which led to them having to rotate a little bit, which worked to their advantage. Iowa State's.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you kind of look at everything overall, though, it was so competitive. But when you look at like, for example, like the 3-pointers, neither team really hit a whole lot of those. So Baylor hit 4 more. So it kind of feels like if Iowa State might have hit a couple more, then, possibly overtime. Obviously, 2 more 6 points overtime. Right. So maybe it just wasn't part of their game plan. I feel like maybe going inside to Audie was the game plan, and it really did look like it looking at the score sheet.
No, it did. And then I think Baylor knew, like, that's where they're going to put the ball. And even in the final minutes to, like, get it to overtime or anything, like, the ball went to Audie, which when Aaronette Von Lay, like, fouled out, like, 3 players went on Audie. And I was like, really, like, that was the decision you went with to, like, give Audie the ball, which, like, makes sense because she can put it up. And, like, if not, everybody else is doing so great. But it was a little like that's kind of what was expected to happen. So I feel like a different strategy should have happened in those final minutes.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. And I felt like, talking about Addie Brown again, how such a high from going to the Arizona State game, scoring 41 points and now only scoring 6, fouling out and having 9 turnovers. I know she had 7 assists and 4 boards, so that was good at least to see. But, I know, like you said, we've been saying Baylor's defense has been one of the best. So it's kind of hard to keep a steady mind and handle the ball well, but still like 9 turnovers is kind of pretty bad.
Yeah. And I can't blame her. Like, Bella Fauntleroy, like, really came into play. She, like, even in the post game, like, she said, like, oh, like, I took it personal. Like, Addie was my focus. Like, I'm going to bring her down. And I was like, oh, it really showed.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable after the night that she had. Like,
Right.
Baylor knew that they had to neutralize her. That opened up Audie. But then again, when they started to shut her down, when they started the triple team, it's like that feels like the only way that teams can sometimes stop Audie is to literally put 3 people on her down low, because it feels like she can score over anybody almost.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch because during the Arizona State game, we saw Baylor come in and the whole team was watching. Like, Addie had this amazing night, and then they just shut her down.
Right,
And
that seemed like they had the advantage right there. You got to learn what they did firsthand. I know they played them in Waco already, got to see them, but this is different, knowing that how she did the game before, and it worked. So
I feel like another thing about that too might be the fact that Iowa State had to play 2 games in a row. I mean, obviously they might have built some momentum after the Arizona State win, but at the same time, Baylor comes in there fresh. Did it look like that had any effect in the game of Baylor maybe being a little bit fresher than Iowa State was, having to play the day before?
A little bit. I was actually thinking about this. I was like, Baylor kind of gets an advantage. Like, they get more time to prep, I feel like.
Right.
And, like, Iowa State can't even celebrate their win after Arizona State. And, like, Coach Fenley even said, like, after the Arizona State game, like, they should, like, celebrate, and it's the coach's job to, like, prepare for the next game. But I was like, they don't really, they're going to prepare. Like, they're probably anxious and they're worried about the next game. Like, they want to come out on top. But yeah, like, they got to watch the players, and like Baylor did, got to watch Iowa State. So I definitely felt like there was a little bit of advantage, and they got to prepare more and, like, see their game strategy kind of going in. So yeah.
Yeah, I know you were there for, like, you know, the Iowa State games and everything, but did you stick around and catch any of the other games there while you were at T-Mobile?
Oh, we watched the TCU. Oh, it was, who did they play?
Was that the Colorado game?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a really good game to watch, mostly because, like, Sedona Prince and, like, Haley Van Lith. But it was interesting because we saw Sedona get her, like, earring ripped out.
Oh,
like,
really?
of her ear. Yeah.
So it was like blood everywhere probably?
It was. And
Oh,
she was, like,
geez.
holding, it was interesting to watch. I was like, man, this is brutal. And she's, like, she's 6'7". And I was like, geez, like, that's crazy. And then it was always fun because they had so many TVs, like, in the little press room. So it was fun just to have that in the background and just keep tabs on everything.
Yeah, like while you're working, you know, look up at the TV, see what's going on in the game that's going on.
Yeah. And even, like, when we were filming the Big 12E, it's like there were TVs everywhere, so we could just, like, keep up to date on, like, the K-State games and whatever. So it was fun.
Speaking of Big 12 eats, which ones did you guys try, and which one was your favorite that you tried?
Honestly, my favorite was the Citronaut. That was pretty good.
UCF's.
Yes.
That was my favorite last year too.
It was good.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess it just, like, brought me back. It was nostalgic because it, like, reminded me of a dreamsicle, which I didn't think I was going to like because I don't like orange flavored things, but it was really good. I liked anything brisket related was really good. I don't remember what they're called, but it was like the pepperoni rolls.
Oh yeah, West Virginia's food.
Yeah, that was not good. Did not enjoy that.
Okay.
But everything else was really good. I liked the wide variety. I was a little disappointed in Iowa State's because it just didn't feel very, like, festive and, like,
It was just a walking taco, wasn't it?
yeah, like, it wasn't anything exciting. Like, we were talking about, like, they could have done, like, a fun name or, like, done a clone cone or something.
right, the clone cone seems more iconic than the walking taco.
Yeah.
Right.
Even though it's just regular ice cream, just food coloring, but still, it's what's about it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you were there with us in Arlington to try the tenderloin that Iowa State had for the Big 12 football championship. How did that compare to Iowa State's walking taco for the basketball championships?
I liked the tenderloin better.
Okay.
I thought that was way better just because it felt more Iowa State-y. Like, that's not a thing, but, like,
No, I get what you mean.
it was like a vibe,
Absolutely,
you know?
Yeah.
The walking taco is just kind of boring. Like, it was plain. Like, it's something I ate in elementary school.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know. I prefer the tenderloin.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Overall, just your final thoughts on the trip to Kansas City and seeing Iowa State compete in Big 12 championships?
It was really fun. I had a fun time. I'm a big Chiefs fan, so it was fun seeing a lot of Chiefs things down there. I was like, oh, yeah. Just because I'm not used to it with me being in Iowa and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But the whole community is really great. Like, everybody shows up for women's basketball. Hilton South really showed up. It was interesting watching the Arizona State game because there was, like, nobody there wearing Arizona State colors, but there were so many K-State colors. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. But it was really great. Everybody's really it's really fun seeing how much women's basketball has grown and how much the community comes together for that.
Absolutely.
And then Kansas City is such a beautiful city. It was really fun to see.
Did they have any like other activities there for like fans to enjoy, like between games or anything set up?
Yeah, Jacob was telling me that there's like a photo thing. You can get your own like basketball player card.
Okay.
There was a couple activities. We didn't stop at any, but there was like a whole field, and then there was the college basketball experience, which is connected to T-Mobile. So that was really fun.
Yeah. Do you guys go to the pep rally?
We did, yes.
Nice.
I
How's
forgot
that?
about that. That was really fun. No, everybody really showed out for that too. The cheerleaders came, the band came. It was so fun, and then the players really enjoyed it, like seeing their family and everything. So I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you went. We're glad you had a good
Thank
time. We'll pivot over to the men's side now. Iowa State stormed into Manhattan, Kansas, and spoiled Kansas State's senior night in a game that they really needed to win. I mean, this was a revenge game. Iowa State got embarrassed. Let's just be blunt with it. I mean, embarrassed in Ames when they came here. So to get this win, I think it was important, a big confidence booster. Another thing about it that was probably really important, Keyshawn didn't play. And I felt like this time, finally, when someone was out, everybody else really around him stepped up and rose to the occasion.
Yeah, man, I feel like this is like a time where Iowa State's learned enough to the point where you're like, okay, we're missing a guy. We should know by now how to
Right.
rotate and get things going. And it looked like that they accomplished that. I mean, Curtis Jones really carried it. Obviously, 24 points off the bench. I think he didn't have 20 points for a while, honestly, going into this game. But, it's nice to see him finally get that going because, I think he really needed this, especially going into tournament play.
Yeah, I mean, he was just electric like always. Off the bench, I mean, he had like basically all of the bench points in this game. But, I mean, when your other guys coming in off the bench, Brant Chatfield, he had only 4, but he had 2 really big baskets at the opening part of the game, 2 big layups. One of them might have been a dunk. But nonetheless, I mean, he had 4 of those opening 8 points where Iowa State kind of, built that little bit of a gap that was like, okay, Iowa State's here, Caden and I were at the game together, and we were kind of thinking, like, this kind of feels like the start of the BYU game a little bit, where, like, Iowa State's up by a little bit. It's like, oh, this is a team that's, they can be scary, but I thought that Iowa State did a really good job of just handling the game, getting a lead, and keeping it throughout just the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, how was your experience at Bramlage?
So,
the crowd and everything, was it electric?
Yeah. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed,
Okay.
but that's probably just because, it's an off year for Kansas State, 15-16 overall, 9-11 in the conference, just not the best year for Kansas State. And not every year can be a good year for every team, which is understandable. I mean, look at Iowa State in the COVID season, right? 0-18 in Big 12 play. So not every year can be a good year, but the atmosphere itself, Bramlage feels to me like a mini Carver Hawkeye. Like, you enter on the top of the arena and all of the seats, all the stands, you go down the whole way. It's really just, everything feels on top of each other. It's a bit smaller than Carver, though. I think it seats 11,000. It took a while for it to fill up. Like, the student section was kind of halfway full up until maybe like 20, 15 minutes up until tip. Same with the entire crowd. I was kind of thinking, like, where are all these people at? Like,
right.
I know that Kansas State has a really solid fan base. Like, where are these people? But they filled in. It got heated at moments, obviously. I mean, there was a lot of technical fouls called. There was just a lot of just bad calls in this game. And the crowd got riled up. I mean, they got into it. They know how important, rivalry games, Farmageddon is. So, yeah, the atmosphere picked up. But I feel like it would be better had Kansas State had a better season.
Absolutely, I mean, like you said, this is kind of retribution for what happened in Hilton. So, but yeah, kind of going back more to the game, I know we talked about how Curtis Jones did, but I think really one of the biggest things that came was Kansas State's three-point shooting. I mean, Iowa State shut them down, like did not allow anything to go. I mean, looked like first half they went 2 for 14, then never hit one in the second half, going 0 for 7. So I think that was probably one of the biggest things that helped Iowa State win.
Yeah, 2 for 21 from 3, 9.5% overall. That's probably the lowest three-point percentage I've ever seen, in a game
definitely.
that I've covered before, or maybe just in general. But that was really one of the big differences. Another one to me was the points off turnovers differential that Iowa State had. Iowa State was able to turn Kansas State over 17 times. Off those 17 turnovers, they had 22 points. On the other side of that, Iowa State had 11 turnovers, only gave up 6 points off of those turnovers. So when you look at that difference. Iowa State has 16 more points off turnovers. Iowa State wins the game by 16 points. And TJ even mentioned it after the game. That was the difference. That's where this game was literally won and lost.
Yeah, and I think it was like even at a point where it was 16-0 in points off turnovers before Kansas State finally got one.
Yep, halftime 14-0.
Yeah, and I think they got one more after that,
Yep.
and then finally Kansas State did it. So that's funny how the number 16 kept popping up for Iowa State and Kansas State. But yeah, that was the biggest, hands down, like you said. I mean, capitalizing off their mistakes is really crucial because I know, like you said, TJ talked about how should have done that at the BYU game. That would have changed the result maybe, but got it done here, which is really what they needed, even though they had only they had 18 steals. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, you look at the guys who had the steals. Obviously, you had actually Taman Lipsy only had one, but I mean, really, Deshaun Jackson, Nate Heisey actually led the steal numbers. So I was glad to see that. Deshaun had a really solid game, I thought. Finally over double figures again with 11 points. He was solid on the defensive glass with 4 rebounds. He had an assist. He had one of the biggest blocks I've ever seen on the season. I mean, just straight spiking that like it's a volleyball type of play.
That was beautiful.
It was great to see. It feels like that type of performance, if we can get that out of him as March progresses, this is really going to benefit Iowa State. But another part of that, it happened because Joshua Jefferson was in foul trouble a lot. I mean, opening 2 minutes, he had 2 fouls. He goes into halftime with 3. He managed it well, though, I thought. Ended with 14 points, shot 3 for 10 with a 3-pointer in each half. I feel like had he not gotten into that early foul trouble, though, Iowa State probably wins by more. But, I mean, Deshaun did a fantastic job. Brant did a solid job filling in for Josh when he was, having his foul troubles.
Absolutely. And I know Brant only played 14 minutes, so to be fair, and he even had 3 fouls himself. So I know it's kind of hard. It seems like every game that the big guys are always getting in foul trouble early, which, they got to kind of manage that going into these tournaments. So, but, it also forced Cade Kellerman to play a little bit too.
It did.
4 minutes. I think the last game he played in before this one was the Houston game. Got a little bit of minutes in before Curtis came back for the Oklahoma State game. But, it was good to see him out there. Obviously, get some minutes, but then, it really was relying upon the guards. Curtis, Taman, Nate Heisey, and even Milan, too. They each played at least 32 minutes. They really had to carry the load to try and keep up and prevent Kansas State from trying to come back.
Can we talk about Nate Heisey's technical?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That was one of the weakest technical fouls I've ever seen. I mean, it did look like he directed it towards the Kansas State bench. But, at the same time, people do that, all the time.
Right, yeah.
It's just a thing that people do after they make a 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he was going like this, but I don't know if they're making it seem like he was showing a pistol.
His fingers looked like they were away from each other.
Yeah, he wasn't making, finger guns to, point at him like it's a bad thing.
Right,
he's doing it this is just like a 3. He always does this. I always see, even everyone else does it, too, and apparently I've been seeing, I know Cycle Fanatic, too, they talking about it. I know Chris Williams had something to say about that. So, but I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, luckily it didn't matter, but still at the same time, it could have, just because, they decided to call it, even though it's a normal celebration after hitting a big 3.
Yeah, I noticed after it, I think either the next 3 or maybe the second one after that Iowa State made after that, Conrad was doing that on the bench. He was dapping everybody up, reaching out like this instead of hand out stretch. So I thought, I was like, I see you, Conrad. That wasn't warranted of a technical.
Yeah.
We also had another one on Kansas State for something that was stupid. We had a double technical that was stupid as well.
Curtis and someone else.
Yeah, it was a mess. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these games that Iowa State's had recently has just had sometimes downright bad officiating. And I don't want that to take away from the game.
No.
I mean, obviously fouls happen. But when it gets to a point where we're calling multiple technicals on both teams and we're calling fouls that, if you literally just, bump somebody, that's not a foul. Why are we calling that? Yeah. Basketball's a physical game. And if we're going to be calling that, then we might as well just not play and foul everybody out.
Exactly, at that point. Yeah, I know sometimes it's going to be, different. So either, they're not going to really call anything or they're going to call both or call a lot more like we saw. So, yeah, I mean, I think it was 44 combined fouls.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just crazy to say. I know we talked about the women's side, 30 fouls for Arizona State alone, but 44 here is just kind of insane between both teams. And
right.
I mean, the refs just got to do a better job, honestly. You got to be able to call a fair game and call what's actually going to be a foul, not some stupid things. I know players act up sometimes, and maybe you call something like that. That's on the players. They got to be better for that. But I mean, just in general, let them play, man.
Exactly. And I don't really like to bring up officiating or fouls, but I mean, like when it's like egregiously bad, I feel like it has to be talked about.
Yeah, it has to. Yeah.
But I don't want it to take away from the fact that Iowa State, had this, big win to finish off the conference season in a game that, like, it's going to give them some momentum, I feel like, heading to the Big 12 championship. I will say, though, last season, Iowa State did lose this exact game at Kansas State on their senior night, and then they won the Big 12 championship. So now you're kind of entering in the opposite situation of, you won in Manhattan. Now you're heading into the Big 12 tournament, and they're going to start actually a round further back than they did last year.
True, yeah. And I know one quick thing for this Kansas State game, too. You talked about how they didn't win it there last year. They hadn't won in Manhattan since February 26th of 2022. So they've been on a pretty big losing streak, or not big, but like couple game losing streak of playing in Manhattan. So, I felt like probably, especially in this rivalry, too, kind of Farmageddon, it's kind of nice to have. But, yeah, like you said, going into it 5 seed, only a single bye because, it really set an emotion after they lost to BYU because even if BYU, I think they played Utah in their last game, even if they lost and we won, it didn't matter because they had head-to-head. So
Plus, like, Iowa State also needed Texas Tech to lose to Colorado, who finished last in the league. And obviously Texas Tech's kind of on a heater right now, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, especially with it being in Lubbock, not even like – it may be in Boulder, but like in Lubbock, no. So, I kind of just sealed their fate, which, isn't the worst thing in the world, honestly. But, being ranked within the top 15 and not even being top 3 or 4 in your conference is kind of sad.
Yeah, definitely. But I guess we can dive a little bit into the Big 12 tournament now if we want to. So the men's tournament is going to start on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. We're recording this on Monday, so tomorrow from right now. First game tomorrow is who Iowa State's going to play on Wednesday. That's between Oklahoma State, who beat Iowa State in Stillwater, versus Cincinnati, who Iowa State beat in Ames, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was pretty competitive, I'd say.
Yeah,
just, Iowa State, and during that stretch, it seemed like, they played teams pretty competitively, just kind of pulled it out towards the end, which, it works out in the end because, still win to win.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a really competitive game. Not just, they're both like solid teams. They can pull together some win streaks. They had a very up and down season, it felt like, too. Mm-hmm. But, this is also the 12 versus the 13. So in the first round, like seeding-wise, this is probably one of the tighter matchups that we're going to have. I will say I am probably going to side with Cincinnati taking this win.
Okay.
And I would probably rather face Cincinnati than Oklahoma State because I know that Iowa State has shown that it can beat Cincinnati. It's just when Iowa State played Oklahoma State, they were just out-physicaled, out-willed, just outperformed in basically every aspect of the game. I feel like maybe they'd kind of go into that one like they did Manhattan, possibly looking for revenge. But at the same time, it feels like Oklahoma State could have Iowa State's number again.
Yeah, and I feel like, if I going into the Cincy side, if Cincy wins, kind of just got to contain Jizzle James, of course, like we saw last time. Yep. Got like 25 points. It's like a tied for a career high, which, he caught fire. And same thing with Oklahoma State with Abu Usman. I hope I said that right. But, it's just really getting guys going. I know Milan kind of struggled in that Kansas State game. He didn't really shoot very well, but started hitting some shots towards the end of the game, which was good to see. At least get something in instead of nothing. But you just guys got to have the right, got to get the right shots going. I know worked out for both sides for just both games, Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. You just can't start slow. You just got to be able to find consistency in your play and just don't make dumb mistakes.
Yeah, I would actually expect Joshua Jefferson to have a pretty solid game. Mm-hmm. When you look back on it, he had 7 rebounds against Cincinnati. He had 8 against Oklahoma State. He was really the X factor, the only guy that kind of really was able to do a whole lot against Oklahoma State when they played them.
Right.
He also had 17 points in that one. So it kind of feels like probably for either of these teams, if you're them, you want to limit Joshua Jefferson. And that's why Deshaun having the game that he just had against Kansas State is probably really important.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to boost his confidence, and it's going to boost the team's confidence in saying that we know that we can rely on you, especially late in the stretch in March.
Yeah, and even Brant Chatfield, too. Like,
exactly.
Against Cincinnati, he had 9 and 6 rebounds and only 16 minutes played off the bench. So you can rely upon him, too, if Deshaun can't get going. So, but, you got to have at least one of them because you can't always rely on Joshua. You saw it happen. I know, like, other factors have been played in the BYU game, but you saw it happen just running Josh out there. He was constantly being leaned upon, couldn't, just kind of like kept bending, and just didn't end up working out. So you kind of have to have one of those guys be consistent, or at least somewhat, perform.
Yeah, and we know that they can be. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, they've all
absolutely.
shown flashes of greatness. It's just maybe you need two of them to be great. Obviously, I feel like one of them is probably going to end up in foul trouble. And if it's any of them, I have a strong feeling that the other two, at least one of them, can step up in their place. And guard play is going to be really important in these games as well. We know how scrappy the Oklahoma State guards are. We know that Jizzle James can score like nobody else. So it's going to be tough on both the front court and the back court, no matter who Iowa State gets.
Yeah, these teams are going to be looking to fight. I know they're going to have some experience under the belt already, playing already a game on Tuesday going into it. So Iowa State's just got to be ready, and they're going to have their Hilton South supporters there too, so it shouldn't be a problem of finding maybe momentum from their crowd. Just got to get it going.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like what Katie was talking about earlier with the women's side. Like, I mean, there's obviously that difference of teams playing a day before, teams getting some rest, and just kind of that balance of, do you want momentum or do you want rest? And it felt like in the women's tournament, rest is what prevailed. I don't know if that's going to happen per se on the men's side, but I mean, there's always a possibility. Teams can make runs, though. Like, I mean, anything can happen in March, though.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the best month for college basketball, so, yeah. And then, kind of going into it, I mean, I don't know if you said already, like, Cincinnati would probably win right now.
I'd say Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'd agree, too. So, assuming they play Cincinnati and assuming they beat Cincinnati, Thursday, same time, 11:30, would play a rematch with BYU. I'm honestly looking forward to that game the most, because that game, despite the loss, and despite them being down by as much as 21, was very fun to watch, to show that they can make an effort to come back, even though BYU is just we're making the right plays at the right time.
Yeah, I feel like this tournament could end up being like a full just revenge tour for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, should Oklahoma State win, Iowa State has a chance to revenge against them. Iowa State, then, if they win, a chance for revenge against BYU. If they win that, they'd likely get Houston, another chance for revenge, because they only played at Houston. They didn't play in Ames. Well, now you're potentially, if Iowa State can win 2 games, possibly playing in Hilton South, then you move on to your semifinals. Or no, I guess the finals, because BYU.
Championship, yep.
And, I mean, you've got Arizona, Texas Tech. I mean, they already beat Texas Tech, but I feel like So my prediction, though, I do have Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship over Iowa State.
Okay.
I'm taking revenge as Iowa State's reason of moving on. I think that's also why Kansas is going to really have a good run in this tournament. I know you do, too.
Yeah, I think, I'm just going to say my championship pick right now. I do have Iowa State repeating as champs, but they do beat Kansas, because I feel like, their side of the bracket right now, so they wait the winner of UCF and Utah, which I think they'll beat easily. Yeah. Then they play Arizona if they win, and I don't think Arizona's the best team. You see Caleb Love is so inconsistent. Yep. Yeah, I feel like Wildcat fans just want him off their team at this point. And then if they play them, they might play Texas Tech or Baylor, because I think either one of them could play. And then I feel like they have a good chance against them, with Bill Self, and especially being in Kansas City. He's had experience there. So
they'll have a ton of fan support, too, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Championship game with Iowa State and Kansas, like half blue, half red. You already know it's going to be like. So
that's going to sell a lot of tickets if that happens.
Yeah. But, mainly just for Iowa State, it's really just getting through the hard times, especially when they play. I know you talked about when getting revenge against Houston potentially. They're missing Curtis and Keyshawn and nearly pulled it off if LJ Cryer didn't go crazy. So if everyone's healthy, that's going to be the biggest thing. I know Keyshawn's TBD for Wednesday as of now.
TJ did say that Monday, so today, he wanted Keyshawn to get back to practice. Keyshawn talked to him after the K-State game, said that he should be ready to go. So they're hopeful that he can play on Wednesday, so we'll just have to see if that all pans out in time.
Right. Even if it does miss the first game but comes back for the rest of them, I think I'm okay with that if they find a way to just take care of business against Cincy or Oklahoma State. But, health's going to be a really big factor in just getting consistency.
Exactly.
And no starting sloppy. That's all I can say.
Yep, yeah. So just to wrap up here, my final four, I've got Iowa State beating Houston, and I've got Texas Tech beating Kansas. Okay. And then I have Texas Tech beating Iowa State in the championship game.
Right. And then Iowa State beating Houston for me, and then Kansas beating Texas Tech for me.
Okay. Also today, we had Big 12 awards announced. Right. Iowa State had quite a few players who made this list. We had, Curtis Jones was the all-first team, which was pretty impressive for being a bench player.
Right, yeah, and he won the six-man award like we kind of expected this year. And, it's kind of well-deserved, obviously, averaging the most points on the team with 17 coming off the bench, too. It's kind of insane. So props to him for that. It's been a long time coming for him. I know last year he had the opportunity to win it, but this year was really more of a case to win, especially in his senior season.
Yeah. Second team, we had Joshua Jefferson. He was also on the Big 12 all-newcomer team, which was really cool to see. I know that TJ's been really high on him. He had been recruiting him for a while, and he finally got him, and I had a feeling that he was going to end up somewhere on one of these lists. Also on third team, we had Keyshawn Gilbert and Taman Lipsey. So pretty solid. 4 Iowa State players across the top 3 Big 12 teams.
Yeah, and Lipsey was also on the all-defensive team as well.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, so good for him. And, speaking on Joshua Jefferson real quick, I thought he was probably one of the best transfers of not just the Big 12, just in general. You know, you see how much it changed Iowa State's team just for success and how they were able to gel so well together. It was just phenomenal how TJ was able to finally get him on his team when he's been recruiting for so long. Yeah,
definitely cool to see. One thing that I was kind of surprised by in the Big 12 awards, Hunter Dickinson on the Big 12 first team. I don't know about that, but I mean, everything else looks pretty solid. So.
Yeah, I don't think you can really complain anywhere else. I think everyone's got a case for where they're at right now, and even some of the honorable mentions have a case to be on these other teams. So I think it was pretty fair and all.
Jizzle James being an honorable mention was a little surprising.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of started off the year slow. That's why he kind of picked it up, and maybe third team, but still, I think he started too slow to get on the third team. Yeah, and there's too much talent too to get onto there. So, but I mean, Dickinson's a question mark, but everything else I can say is fair.
I'll throw one more thing in real quick about this. Haley Van Lith was the Big 12 Player of the Year, tournament player of the Big 12 tournament. TCU wins the tournament. JT Toppin of Texas Tech is the Big 12 Player of the Year. I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12 championship. I think he's going to sweep those awards too.
Say it ain't so.
So, I don't know. I might have just spoken it into existence.
Say it ain't so. Come on, man. That's very valid. I mean, Texas Tech has the abilities to win the conference just if they can piece together and find consistency, because I know they've kind of been up and down this season. Not totally, but still they've had moments where they haven't looked great. So let's look at the Big 12 tournament preview. Iowa State, Wednesday, 11:30, takes on either Cincinnati or Oklahoma State. So we'll see what happens there. Bracketology time. Back to the women's side. I was a little surprised that even after going 1-1 in the Big 12 tournament, they fell out of the last 4 byes and into the last 4 in. So they're currently in a play-in game right now. I thought that going 1-1 in the Big 12 tournament, especially with the way that they played Baylor, they would have stayed, as one of those, not the first 4 games. Yep.
They're at the 10 seed. They're going against Princeton, which I feel pretty confident in. Honestly, I'm not disappointed in how the bracket is looking.
Yeah,
I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, I mean, if it does stand, so I think it's interesting too, because usually these play-in games are 11 seeds. So it kind of shows the chaos that we're kind of seeing with these smaller conferences of just bubble bursters and the bubbles moving and everything. So that might be another reason of why Iowa State is, dropping to that first 4. Obviously, since you have Princeton and Harvard there in that first 4, one of them's probably just going to make it. The other one's probably going to miss it entirely based on who wins that conference tournament. So that's a benefit to Iowa State probably, depending on how that happens. I feel like as it stands right now, Iowa State is set to be in the tournament. It's just a matter of, are they a first 4 team or are they truly in the field of 64 after that?
Yeah, and then even when they lost to Baylor, Coach Fenley was they deserve to be in the tournament. They can play all these teams. And I definitely see it. I think they definitely have potential and should be in the tournament. But it's just there's really good teams in here.
I know.
So I'm nervous to see how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, my argument for Iowa State, just look at their losses. UConn, Iowa, South Carolina, all their Big 12 losses were to the top 6 teams in the Big 12, and all of them are going to make the tournament.
Right.
So I feel like you have so many quality losses right there, and you finish the season off with that huge win over Kansas State. I know Ioka Lee wasn't playing, but still, it's a ranked team. It's a tournament team. I feel like Iowa State's done enough to put themselves into this field and at least be competitive with whoever they match up against.
Yeah, and I think it'll definitely be a close game, and they've definitely grew as teams and figured out a strategy that works for them, but I just don't think they're as talented as like some of these really great players.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when you look at like, the USC's, UCLA, Texas, UConn, Notre Dame.
Right.
I mean, even if they do get out of this, they'd have Michigan in the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Say they win that, they're going to match up with NC State, who I believe was the regular season champ in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
I think they ended up losing to North Carolina in their conference championship. But, I mean, nonetheless, it's a tough draw no matter what. So,
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I feel like they would make it, but it might be a situation last year where they might grab a close upset win in round one and just kind of, probably lose to a top seed in that second round.
No, I definitely see that going in. I definitely see them like working their way all the way up and then dropping.
Yeah.
Just when it gets to like the higher ranked teams.
Yeah. If you had to pick right now, I know that Selection Sunday's, a couple days away, less than a week now. Who would you pick to win the women's national championship right now?
USC.
Okay. Why?
Juju Watkins.
Just Juju Watkins.
Just Juju.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I feel like that speaks for itself.
It pretty much does, yeah. Probably who would you pick to win the women's tournament right now?
Give me Paige Beckers and UConn. I like where their bracket is at right now. I mean, they have Texas to go through, but, they're starting off with Albany. They get to host, obviously, too, and then Louisville, Oregon. Think they could beat them. And then, could face J.J. Cornerly in West Virginia in that, I think it'd be the Sweet 16 matchup. Yeah, if they can beat Kentucky.
Yeah, I'll throw it out.
Yeah, you go ahead, yeah.
I
think just UConn makes it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw it out right now. I mean, they're winning the Big East championship right now by 18 points over Creighton at halftime. So, pretty good performance out of them right now. My pick to win... Man, this is tough. I'm going to actually go with UCLA. I think UCLA is like a whole team. To me, looks like one of the better ones.
Right.
South Carolina's there. Obviously, they're going to be good. So is Texas. But I think UCLA, their first year in the Big Ten, I don't know. I like the Bruins to get this done.
Fair enough.
Over on the men's side, I feel like Iowa State, no matter what they do in the Big 12 tournament, they should be a 3 seed in Milwaukee. I don't care if they lose in that first round. I don't care if they go 1-1. I feel like a 3 seed at worst is what Iowa State should have.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there. I do think they consider a 4 seed just because if, like, say, lose in the first round by like 20 points.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, they should stay at 3 no matter what. I mean, if they go on a run and go to the championship game, maybe a 2 seed isn't as out of the picture as it is. I mean, because Houston's currently number 1. If they beat them and then go on to win the championship against whoever, I think they. I know 1 seed's obviously gone, but 2 seed I think is still very possible, especially since Texas Tech is a 2 seed right now. And if they beat them in the championship game, I know you have them losing to them, but I don't even have them playing because Kansas, I think, will beat them in that semifinal game. But still, I do think a 2 seed's possible, but I feel like it's got to be championship or bust for that to happen.
Right.
But any other scenario, I think is probably 3, which I'm okay with. And looks like right now they'll be in the Milwaukee bracket. I haven't really seen them play otherwise, so. Prepare for a trip to Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen. Right now, Iowa State 3 seed against Northern Colorado, which could be interesting. The other side of that 6 versus 11 matchup is Michigan, who I believe is second in the Big Ten right now.
I believe so.
Yeah, they're up there, but that's a sneaky matchup for sure. And then VCU would be there as the automatic qualifier out of the Atlantic 10. Obviously, VCU, when it comes tournament time, they tend to turn things on. So I feel like if Iowa State can get out of that 3 versus 14 matchup, which I feel like no Iowa State fan, knowing the history of 3 versus 14 matchup, should overlook this. UAB 2014. So yeah. You can't overlook these teams.
No, absolutely not. It's a different breed in this tournament.
Yeah.
It's the best of the best. And to real quick, Michigan is actually 3rd in the Big Ten. Maryland jumped them for 2nd. So, but nonetheless, top 3 in the Big Ten. But yeah. Can't really overlook anyone. I mean, this is March Madness. Someone's going to upset somebody multiple times probably even. So, I mean, I see Furman in there. Can they beat Tom Izzo like they did with Virginia a couple of years ago? So,
for chance.
We'll see. But yeah, 3 for 14, I mean, I feel like they should be able to handle business, but at the same time, they got to keep a cautious eye on these teams because, they're coming to win.
Yeah, this bracket itself looks kind of tough, but, I mean, it feels like Iowa State, if they kind of like just lock in and don't have players out, everybody scores, everybody contributes, they can get through it. Your 1 seed right now is Duke. This is in the East region. 2 seeds Tennessee, 3 would be Iowa State, your 4 is Wisconsin, and your 5 is BYU. That 4-5 matchup is interesting to me because I was high in Wisconsin, but then this past week kind of happened. That loss to Penn State wasn't great. BYU, I'm still looking at them as, you know, they could possibly make some noise. I know that they got eliminated last year way earlier than they wanted to, and they're probably just wanting to, you know, make it at least one round further this
Absolutely.
time.
And I know in moving up to Duke's side of the 4 teams, and they might have to play UConn or Vanderbilt. And I feel like if they match up with Dan Hurley's team, you never know. I mean, he's got the coaching experience to try to take down Duke, just if his team itself can just not make mistakes going into it. But I feel like Duke should beat UConn because I feel like UConn's just dead in the water, not the same team as last year, and they're not going to repeat.
Of all the matchups I'm looking at, though, of like possible 8 or 9 versus 1s, that's kind of the one where I feel like possibly, you know, one of those lower seeds could knock out a 1 before. But again, this is like, you know, not officially the bracket. This is what could happen, so all hypothetical. But yeah, I'm okay with if this is how it turns out for Iowa State. I feel like playing in Milwaukee right now is just the biggest thing that the team needs because I know that it's close enough that the fans are going to go there and support them.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see how the Big 12 tournament goes for them. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Daily Dish. Pavla and I will be in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament. We'll have podcasts, articles, lots of coverage, more Big 12 eats for you guys. So stay tuned for those, and we'll see you in Kansas City.